every time. But I'm not. Well, maybe I'll try it. I'll see if it works because it seems like the software's working today. I think we're live now. Uh, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic podcast. I have another fascinating guest with me. I'm gonna hit the intro, and well, it won't let me. So, I have with me IndigoAngel. She's an amazing person. She's an amazing researcher. I'll just read her bio. It says, my human name is Amanda Jane DeMarco. My ascended identity is IndigoAngel. This would be my higher aspect of my soul that has transcended my humanism within and become the angel incarnate on earth. I'm a midway portal receiver transmitter to the galactic code of quantum mathematical, geometric, electromagnetic, tonal, radiational, photonic, elemental spectrum, light, and sound frequencies of the original crystal orders that orb, transmit, and reflect throughout all 12 dimensions of consciousness within the physical matter and the human body. I was chosen and encoded through the rigorous ascension cycles, higher dimension light intelligence to deliver humanity messages and transmit frequencies, encoded through the Stargate alignments and collective waves and fusions of the solar, lunar, celestial, energetic relationships, and that goes on. But with all that said, I want to give her a big warm welcome back to the show. Indy, thanks for coming back on. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rob. It's so good to be here with you and everyone here on Typical Skeptic podcast. How's everyone doing? Thank you for having me. I guess we're going to dive into some interesting topics today.
Yeah, and I think they all relate, right? We're going to be talking about J seals and addictions and seals and in general. And I know we talked about seals last time, but I think it's really important to hit home on those because I want my audience to get an understanding of what's manipulating their consciousness, like what's has their bodies as to why they're feeling they might not be in check. And also, what I'd like to find out is like, how long have these seals had control of us? Like, I mean, have these seals been like affecting people for like our entire lives, like, and our parents and grandparents' lives, and we're just finding out about it now? But I'll let you riff off that and whatever you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are universal seal system sets in which follow different root races and timelines in which they have been, activated and initiated within our bioenergetic field, within our hologram. They're basically living consciousness that has taken a form in the field. So it can come through symbolism, it could come through seals, it can come through different types of implants, it can come through holographic pictures and events, and they can root themselves in different ways in the body. Even if you just have a seal located in one location of the body, like it can have extensions, it can go into different timelines, it can go into different organs. They're very complex. I just taught an entire course on this called the Implant and Seal Removal Certification course, which I go into the details of each one of these seal systems. I myself personally have decoded 4 different seal system sets that I think overall humanity is dealing with on a universal level of a template that's designed to target different aspects of the blueprint and the human manifestation field in terms of oppressing, in terms of control, in terms of degradation of immediate reality, and just the totality of manifest destiny overall. It can tie into addictions. It definitely ties into planetary modification, weaponization, and technology, as many of these seal systems, such as the J seals and the Draco seal systems, they operate or are implanted according to frequency fences that run in the earth. So all of it on a bigger level is tying back to, controlling and suppressing humanity and basically implementing anything by all means necessary, whether it's on a spiritual level all the way down to the physical, infiltrative level of our consciousness in the ways in which they're targeting and attacking us. Yes.
And then who is
trying to wrap
who
that up.
Yeah, that's fine. I was gonna say, who's responsible for this? Is it like the Draco, or is it like multiple ET groups, or is it beings from inner Earth, or is it certain entities that have learned how to tap into the human field? I guess and do they do it for like loosh farming? I guess.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's an unconscious drive in which implementer beings are doing it that a lot of times beings that are initiating or, inclined to install these, that they may not even on a deeper level know what they're doing it for, right? Like they can't even foresee what they're creating. It's all in the name of the belief of God, which ultimately comes back down to who installed these, right? False alien gods, basically, and beings that were worshipped as so and as such. When it comes to the J seals, particularly, it was the Jehovah Anunnaki in which that are responsible for this installation. It ultimately comes down biblically. It comes down through the revelations, like the Old Testament, so the old Hebrew Bible, so down through like the Yahweh false alien God belief, right? Which is just like a false father complex. And so it's tied to that in that there are seals. So J seals are actually representative of like the 4 horsemen and like the 7 seals, in which the lamb comes and is resurrected and ultimately is the one that was chosen to like remove the seals. And also in the Quran and like Islamic beliefs, like they also actually believe that seals should be removed from the body, and from Revelations, which was an interesting thing that I tied in the course class to kind of bring up different perspectives on this. But yeah, so it was installed through biblical Templars, and ultimately through the Jehovah and Anunnaki, which are responsible for that seal set system, which ultimately, though, I think that these Anunnaki beings are like underlords to the Dracos anyways. Like there's kind of like a descendancy of this hierarchy. So when you ask how far back does this go, I think this goes back to the Dracos, like 500,000 years ago, when they began modifying and experimenting on human beings. And these pre-civilizational timelines of Mu, possibly, potentially, don't know, like don't have verification of that, but we do have understanding that that was happening during the Lemurian timeline quite a bit. So I think that the first implant and seal systems to be installed were the Lemurian implant and seals that came from the catastrophic events of the Holocaust that took place on the Hawaiian Islands, which is so funny. All the stuff comes back around again for us to resurface all of the
full circle, right?
Yeah. Yes. So I think ultimately I think initially they implanted the masculine body. I think these were the first beings to be implanted, was just like the overall masculine, divine masculine collective template, in which they installed, King of Tyranny implants. They installed hedonistic implants, Balaut implants. They installed sexual misery implants. They installed seals and implants into the hearts and the ears and the eyes. There's a lot that they've done to circumcision and satanic ritual abuse is a form of a trauma, which is a form of an energetic living consciousness that technically manifests itself in the form of an implant, which is just like another word for a holographic blockage or an energy blockage in your field. And so I think they were the first ones targeted, because the divine masculine is meant to take a role on the earth that is to guide and lead the divine feminine. Like when you look at the dynamic of the nuclear family and how that's supposed to play out, like I think that they were chosen to be the first degraded templating, essentially, to continue to target and weaken the collective. And I think it happened through the betrayal seeds that ultimately came in through planetary warfare, but came through the great betrayal of Thoth, actually, during the Lemurian timeline. So there's a huge story and there's a huge history that goes into this.
Wait,
and I don't know if you want me to go into it, but
yeah, for sure. Because I've heard there's a different stuff I've heard about Thoth. I've heard that like there was like Project Ibis, where Thoth was hijacked by the government and they're using Thoth against us. But then I've heard from other people that Thoth is good. So I think there's a lot of confusion around Thoth right now. So anything that you can share about it would be interesting.
Well, I think the main confusion comes down, and I think it's propagated a lot through the Galactic Federation. I think that these would be current day modern time Thothian descendant groups, basically, of consciousness, because there's a huge like belief structure that I've seen being pushed through the spiritual community that Thoth is good, that Thoth is returning, that Enki and Lil are returning, that there's a return of Enki's army, and that, Zetas are good, and that we should be friends with Zetas. And so there's like this whole, trying to normalize these energies. But I mean, it comes back down to the understanding that Thoth was the one that basically was given a lot of this ancient knowledge. So you said, are these beings that are doing this stuff that are of Rishik intelligence, that are of ascended master intelligence? Well, the answer is yes. They've been trained in the arts of ascended spiritual ascension technologies and knowledge, particularly around the universal tree of life technologies. And they've learned how to modify and manipulate and coerce all this information, to taint it, to basically attach different belief systems and structures to it that actually ultimately limit the ascension capacities and debilitate the biological ascension markers from actually activating and awakening in people's fields. So this is really crazy, but essentially what's going on with this is there was knowledge of the beings in Lemuria, that these were like the original ascended tribes. Like, these were the original bloodlines, the Ioni tribes. These were the ones that were called the Yanas. So they were of the true like spirit of the creator, and they would come back at the end of ascension cycles. So they actually would come back to heal global catastrophe and all of the things that would happen. Well, it was at the end of an ascension cycle, and they were the beings that were going in through the inner earth gate sites in Kauai, Hawaii, and these original ancient tribes that had knowledge of sound and light frequency healing in 12th dimensional bodies. They could go in through these gate systems and heal the earth. They could heal and extract the corruption. They could literally extract the reptilian Draco energy, planetary pole modification, all stuff that they were doing in these timelines. So when you talk about planetary weaponization and technology, all of this stuff was happening in these timelines as well. So they would go in and heal and correct this. And then there was word that Thoth received from this. And so they actually went in. It was the groups of Thoth that went into these original Ioni tribes and were a part of the Holocaust and the genocide that took place. And this was when the forced breeder programs actually had began. And it was like biblically spoken about that, the sons of man descended down and slept with the women. These were forced breeder campaigns where they took a lot of these fifth dimensional ascended masters, split them apart, men and women, lied, installed a lot of, blackmail basically that happened. And so the men were taken for execution and castration, and the women were also taken to Nibiru and were forced to breed with these Anunnaki hybrids. And so that's how the story goes, that it was Thoth that was at the core of the Lemurian Holocaust between timelines as we went from Lemuria to Atlantis. And so that's why I don't think that Thoth necessarily, and there is spirit. I mean, you could read the tablets, the Emerald, but I mean, can we really read the Emerald tablets? Do you have the original Emerald tablets that were written by Thoth? We don't.
No, can I tell you about that? Like, there's a lot of like speculation. Okay, so there's the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, which is in the London Museum, right? But then these Emerald Tablets of Thoth were supposedly found by Dr. Doriel under I think it's under El Kukulkan, or the Chichen Itza, under, I think supposedly Dr. Doriel. He was a part of this group called the Great White Brotherhood, which is like, a spiritual group. Okay, so he found them supposedly, and then he transcribed them. But like, what I was thinking is, it just sounds like somebody like esoteric wrote those and put the Thoth's name to them, even though they say that Thoth wrote thousands of things. But still, it's something, because we have no proof, is what I'm saying, of the actual Emerald tablets. Like, they're just, that's the story behind it, supposedly.
Yeah.
But nobody actually has a real Emerald tablet besides the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, which is something different that's in the museum. So that's what I think, or what I know about it. I don't know.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'm glad that you had insight on that, because that's exactly what it is. Like, where are these actual Thothian Emerald tablets? Supposedly, right? I personally think that they are translated through the Sumerian tablets. I would have to obviously translate Sumerian tablets to really feel if I think this is true. I haven't done that. But who knows? Maybe someday I will. But that's the thing, is like, I think that there's a lot of disinformation. And this is why another reason why I don't think it should be so subjugated as truth, as Thoth being a good being and all this stuff, when like we can't even find his actual ancient Emerald tablets. It's being translated through other people who are claiming, to have information and knowledge on this stuff. So where really is the truth in that?
Yeah, someone in the audience said, Brenda Shaver, she says he betrayed humanity deeply. So she must know the story as well. So is this like
Yeah.
something that people, I mean, what do you think? Like, is that kind of what resonates with you if you had to guess? Like, is that what you feel? I mean, because you're really spiritually tapped in. So, like, do you feel like that resonates with you? Obviously, it does, right?
Well, I'm a huge supporter of Ashera and Nadine's work, Voyagers 1 and 2, and this is what, she has spoken about as a guardian speaker. Lisa Renee has also transmitted the same information. And, there's other scholars who have written about these things. I mean, even David Icke. David Icke in The Biggest Secrets talks about force breeder programs. And so also if you look into a lot of James C. Churchward's work, who was someone who highly studied Mu civilization, there's a lot of cross-reference of these knowledges, and how, a lot of betrayal type acts and Holocaust, it's not just this particular incident in Kauai, Hawaii, where this happened. Like, if you actually search the history, like even just Google like history of Holocaust and the Hawaiian Islands, like it extensively is like record after record after record of Holocaust that has occurred. So I think it's a repeating timeline that might be, encapsulated in a suffering template or a suffering body of the earth that comes back up to recycle through as we keep clearing deeper levels and layers of planetary warfare and history that has to do with the implosions of Maldek, the implosions of the asteroid belt, the history of Mars, and the history of our entire universal planetary system as these things unfold. It's said that like the Tablet of Destinies was ultimately stolen from the moon. Was it Thoth that went up there in his little spaceship and stole the Tablet of Destinies from the moon? I mean, like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. It
yeah, I
makes sense
mean,
though. It's wild. Like it's wild that we don't know our real history, but like we I think we're starting to come together because I think like right now as people are like waking up and becoming more in touch with like kind of like you, how like you study, but now you're really in touch with your senses, so you can feel comfortable bringing this information forward with not just with you, with like you said, Ashiana Dean and Lisa Renee and other
yeah,
people.
yeah.
But what I wanted to ask you about was these forced breeding programs. Like, what happened exactly? Like, was it just in Lemuria, or did this happen in Atlantis? Because we see it kind of happening now with like the Greys. So it's not forced breeding, but it's like forced DNA manipulation, right? It's like the
Yeah.
Greys will abduct somebody and they'll take eggs from a woman and they'll take semen from a man, and then they're making some hybrids when we don't even know where they're going. It's bizarre, but and I don't even know if that's still going on. But sorry, I'll let you riff off that. I
I
don't know where
mean,
you want.
definitely historically speaking, going back to ancient origins of the story of Thoth, going back to when the sons of man descended and, the Nephilim basically mated with human women. There's also record of this in slavery accounts when you think about the Atlantic slave trade and people that were taken for sexual acts and for forced breeding to make more slaves. This was something that heavily happened within the Irish women and a lot of the women of West Africa and North Africa, which is said to be the true birthplace in the land of the goddess. And really where, all ancient philosophy in terms of the ancient Egyptians ultimately came from were these Berber tribes. And were these really ancient goddesses like Neith, and where everything descended down from Amazonian tribes, where it was matriarchal. I think that the great takeover was really when things switched from a matriarchal rulership to a patriarchal rulership, and we see evidence of this really within our history of just 10,000 years ago. But this is when I think a lot of the forced breeder energy happened, because there was these great deceptions of almost like the fall of woman. And I think this really comes through the story of Neith. This comes through the story of Medusa, and this comes through the stories of Isis and who's the other one?
Ashera.
Hinan, yeah, Ashera, the wife of Baal. There was kind of a fall of woman that actually took place, and it was, where they kind of had this great deception of woman on woman violence, and where they divided women between like women of like purity and then women of promiscuity, and like have like these battles of these tribes within these Amazonian cultures where women were at their throats, actually literally like fighting each other to the death and killing each other. And then there was a great hijacking of this feminine empowerment and used for the government, used for the rule of Rome, used for the rule of ancient Egypt. And the only way that these forms survived were in like lesser, more suppressed forms under the patriarchy, such as with like the Vatican, where they basically hold Mother Mary's energy hostage. She's a descendant of Isis. You know, she is the priestess of Isis, and that's how she survived through Catholicism and Christianity all this time. So I think that, you know, it's the de-evolution of the empowerment of the divine feminine in a lot of ways, you know, and so that plays into this. But yeah, forced breeder programs have been, I mean, in modern day times, this is our sex trafficking. This is our child trafficking. This is our prostitution. You know, this is all these hijacking and fracking of wombs and eggs and stealing uteruses and stealing babies and surrogacy and in vitro fertilization. As much as we want to say, oh, in vitro is great, like this is like human beings trying to play the hand as like God creator. You know what I mean? Like we shouldn't be interfering with this stuff. There's a genetic code and a creation, you know, thing that's supposed to happen, you know, that like certain things aren't supposed to come in existence according to natural divine law, you know. So the fact that we're doing things like these are subsidiary programs of forced breeder programs, and just the total disgust and control over the woman's reproductive system in general. Like, what is everybody's obsession with it? The level of sterilization that's taking place on the earth right now with women and the problems that have come from that is absolutely insane. Like, I talk to women all day, every day about this. And so it's crazy.
Well, I wanted to get into this. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, does this tie into your video where you were talking about the invocation of Ashera? I thought that was really interesting. I watched your video on that, and it was really deep. Like, you always make these, like when you went to Rome, you made a really deep video. And at that time, I don't think I understood it, but now I'm starting to understand it better. But I'm not a woman, so I think it really resonates to women as well. Like I love that you're like fighting for women, that you're like standing up for women, that like you have this passion to help your sisters. Can you talk about all that in your video that you made for about Ashera?
Yeah, so cool, thanks. That's a repost actually. I posted that up in 2020. But I went to ancient Egypt in the White Desert to film that. Like, it was a few hours, actually maybe a few hours outside of Cairo. One of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. Like, if you haven't ever been to the desert of the Sahara or anywhere like any of these places, you should definitely book a private tour and go do something like that. It's the most quiet place on earth you could ever go. Perfect for filming. And just completely connected to the universe and the stars. But yeah, I get activated by these goddess initiations that seem to kind of unfold into my life. And it's like I'm speaking with direct transmission with the goddess, unfolding their true story, their true energy, what they want me to display. Like, so I was really connected to Ashera's energy within that, and filmed the original objectification of woman, which is just kind of portraying, again, like the fall of woman, or like the fall of womankind, even, like to use those words specifically. It's an artistic piece to just kind of explain how, you know, carnal hearts can't really understand the inner working of the divine feminine, like emotional and mental body, and that, you know, like the loss that has come in between this, and the evil and the enmity that has come in between this. And it's really just to awaken people. It's really just to kind of get a deeper poetic message, to awaken to deeper levels and layers of, you know, what's going on within the divine feminine psyche collective overall. I was definitely tuned in with that one. Yeah.
I was going to say that I think I talked to someone from the Middle East about this, that they said back in the day that before there was like this worship of the male patriarchy, like before it turns into male gods, like there was a time where humankind worshipped the goddess, you know, and that kind of fell astray when they started becoming up with these male gods. And that have you ever heard about that? And like, what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, definitely. That's why I was kind of touching on like the Berber traditions, which are like the original Amazigh bloodlines of North Africa that are basically all over Algeria, Morocco, Libya, which are like the home foundation of these original ancestors to the ancient Egyptians. And so that was the time, at least in terms of Africa, in which that there was evidence that there was matriarchal rulership, that Athena and Medusa again descended down from the goddess Neith, which was an ancient Berber queen. And so all of the Egyptian pantheon essentially is descended from the Berber pantheon. And so Osiris, Isis, all of them, it's all descending down from that, but which is coming down from traditions of matriarchal rulership ultimately. This is why the goddess is so uplifted in the ancient Egyptian time. But at the same time, it goes back to the understanding that even ancient Egyptian mythology goes back to the beliefs of the Canaanites, right? Because Neith is a descendant of Tanith, and each goddess is like another, rolling down of another goddess. And Tanith was the wife of Baal. So when we talk about why we have all of this, really powerful and even cursed or corrupted ancient pharaonic energy, we talk about the obelisk network, and we talk about these shafts that are coming up out of the ground from ancient Egypt. This was the worship of Baal. And so it's all connected. And but even Baal now, I think he's considered like a fallen god, or he's considered like an entity, or even in other forms, Christianity even to this day is referred to him as Satan or the Prince of Demons. And so this has to do with pre-ancient pagan roots, which were ultimately like banned and demonized before religion kind of came into power and took over all of these belief systems of antiquity. But yeah, I don't think Baal is considered a good guy these days. So, but that's just to show you how much of the ancient Egyptian belief system and pantheon is based according to that. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Well, let me ask you this. But we were going to talk about the J seals in addictions, and like I think that's important because the energetic body has to do with the physical body. If we have an energetic problem, it can affect the physical, and there vice versa. If we have a physical problem like addiction, that can really affect the energetic body. But sometimes these seals can make the addiction thrive, or they can feed off the addiction. Is that kind of what's going on with that?
Well, yeah, this was something that came up in the seal and implant class. It wasn't a direction that I was planning on focusing on too much, but it was just like a powerful question that came up, and, looking deeper into it, like, it kind of stuck with me because I just, have family that deals with these things. And again, like I think everyone has people in their lives that are dealing with addiction. And so when we get to the core levels of, how or why we have so much imbalance and why we're so, messed up in these areas of our lives, like I think it does come back on a global level back to holographic blockages. It comes to what is impeding upon the astral and the spirit and the soul body. There is negative alien implants. There are negative alien machinery. That's what these seal systems are. And such as J seals and Draco seals. And this is what is impacting the human nervous system. It's when we have energetic blockages, it affects the central nervous system, it affects the brain, it affects the lymphatic systems, and it's what is releasing distress signals of oppression and control and manipulation, and it feeds into the frequency fences of the APIN networks, to the Aquilin control systems, which are the Golden Eagle control systems, which feed into dark military, which feed into abduction and secret space programs and all of the crazy planetary modification weapons technology. When we got on, you're like, how does this all tie together? That's how it all ties together. It's
Wait.
again.
wait, let's break this down bit by bit. What are the, I know what the frequency fences are, but because we talked about that before, but what is the APIN network? And then how does that connect to the dark military? I think people find this fascinating. This is insane. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's so crazy how it all ties. Atlantean Pylon Implant Network. So there's within that, there's many different levels of control matrices that exist on the Earth that function according to underground bases, secret military, dark military, secret organizations, secret modification, and alien technology. And so they can transmit these and turn them on and turn them off and basically control these frequency fences that alter time and space perception. There's a lot of different ways in which they're doing it. There's subcategories within this as well. You know, looking glass technology, blue beam technology, HAARP. I even think the DEA and like the CIA, you know, all of this, like it's all, there's like subcategories of directed energy weapons and scalar weapons that they use. And I think the basis for all that runs and happens ultimately begins with underground bases and underground military technology, and also above as well, satellite technology, all of this stuff. But yeah, it's all connected through those APIN networks because that's what is operating within each control set. There's different factions that run different things. The Eagle Control Network is heavily, you know, they're based according to country. Like if you look at national animal, like the double-headed eagle is in Russia. The eagle is in the United States. The eagle is in, I think, Mexico. Like there's particular countries that
The double-headed
run.
eagle was in Rome too, which was like the sign of Ninurta, which was Enlil's son, which Enlil's like the Yahweh figure, I think. So that all ties in to the. I think, yeah, I know what you're saying. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, the Aquila network is really about military. It's about controlling through brute force. It's about controlling through organized alpha organization and being the strongest organized alphas on the planet. It's about ensuring that that legacy is not something that can be taken down or ran over if there is global cataclysm or mass destruction, that they actually prepare and set up systems so that system will survive post total human annihilation. That's what the Georgia Guidestones were all about. You know, they were there as an Aquilan marker because not 30 miles down the road, what did you have in the ground? We had the rock eagle effigy mound, which was alluding to flying eagle Nephilim, like this flying giant Nephilim bird, basically. And these were sites that are all interconnected. These things are not, what's the word, by coincidence? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all the symbolism's there for a reason. It's just like putting the pieces together. But yeah, the Eagle network is one. You have the Falcon network, which is like really connected to the Anunnaki. But they're all connected together. They're also connected to wormhole systems that run inside certain areas of the grid, primarily within the Atlantic body, as that's the most tumultuous zone of the planet that runs the most scatter radiation, that runs the most checkerboard mutations, polarization grids to actually separate timelines apart and to destruct and distort and to create fragmentation that disallows unity from taking place. And that's what wormhole systems ultimately are meant to do, is to systematically break everything down in a reversal spin and pulls you into black hole experience or alteration or even an artificial timeline. But it's basically where you're being ripped apart from one point to another, so you can't really see where you're going or what you're connecting to, and it's all like chaos basically and destruction through wormhole systems.
I got a question about that. But so when it comes down to this addiction that we're dealing with now, like, so because it's becoming like an epidemic, right? I think it's beyond an epidemic. Like there's homeless people here in Pittsburgh where I live, like I'm sure where you live. They're in California, Texas, I mean all over the place. And like they have camps set up for homeless people. And a lot of these homeless people are on drugs. Like, and I don't I don't want to put down anybody, because I could be in the same situation if like my circumstances were different, or somebody else could, or maybe somebody watching knows somebody who's homeless. Like, it's not about, what I'm saying is, was this a plan by these evil militant forces, or whoever, the gatekeepers of whoever's running this realm? Do you think this was a plan to, like, for the downfall of humanity? Like, do you see that as an option of something that might
Well,
have
I
been?
don't understand why we are even, no offense to you, but I want to say, I don't understand why we even ask that question. Do we ask that question when the plague hits? Do we ask that question when we're in forced recession? Do we ask that question when Maui's blown up? Why do we ask that question when we see fentanyl being dispersed all over the streets to these people? Like, how the heck are these people on the
You're
streets really
right.
affording this crap in the first place? Where are they actually getting it? I think that these covert government operations like the DEA and stuff, like, I don't even know if I can say that word on YouTube. I think, they are smoke screens for what's really going on, which is, like, I mean, honestly, like, they're giving out free, shots or whatever. They're
They
giving
have, they
this stuff
have,
out for free. Like,
and
I
it's
think
not
they're
just that,
getting
but
the
they
drugs
have
for
like,
free.
they have, I don't know if you know about this, but I know they had one here in Pittsburgh, because I knew someone who was addicted. They have needle exchanges where people can go and get free needles so they don't get HIV. You know what I mean? So I think that's like a sign right there that there's something really wrong with our society. I see
Yeah.
this as an inner working of something really nefarious and evil. And there's some people that say that, like, the evil ETs have left our solar system. Like, how can we say that? I mean, like, I realize that the thing, a lot of things that are done to humans are very inhumane. So I can't see. I mean, I know our government's corrupt and all that stuff, but I mean, I really feel like there's something more nefarious behind it all. Like, looking to see the downfall of human civilization, because it's not just the addiction; it's everything, like you said, like what happened in Hawaii. It's fires everywhere. People are crazy. Like, do you know what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say? Am I making any
Yeah.
sense or no?
No, absolutely. And I think that we don't want to look at addiction and the homelessness and the overdoses of drug abuse and, all of this stuff, because there's so much shame and denial in it. It really plays at the core of our wounding and self-judgment and judgment of the collective and our nation and humanity. And I mean, think about it. I mean, the people in California, like I say, they're living in like these spheres of realities, like where there's so much disassociation. I mean, they could be across the street from a homeless camp and from these drug operations, but because their stuff is perfect and nothing's going on and da 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 da, it's like, don't see nothing. Like, it's we're living in these spheres of reality. I think those are also created in terms of the frequency fences. I think that in terms of grid control and grid computation and how they're controlling through AI, I think they control the grids through their algorithms. They can control the grids through AI. They can control the grids through Silicon Valley. They can create these spheres of illusion and delusion and separation within the mind of the consciousness. And so that people are legitimately existing inside of reality where they can't see anything else outside of it. So that's another aspect of mind control and levels of MK Ultra that's actively being implemented on the collective. But yeah, I think that this whole thing is Willy Wonka is secretly responsible for all these systemic outbreaks of mass death campaigns, like labeled as addiction, labeled as fentanyl crises. I think that everything
The
is
jab too. I mean, like, let's be honest. I mean, like, and I think you're even allowed to talk about that on YouTube now, but like, because they realized that they were so wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, like,
mm-hmm.
they realized that there was something seriously wrong with that. And I don't know how deep we can go into it, but I know that, like, yeah, they basically realized, like, that was like a poison, that it was like a, like, people were dying. And what's interesting? Raynetta came on my show and she said, "What do they find?" And like, she thinks that it's this deal ties to the spiders, which she's going to talk about later tonight. She thinks it's this alien spider race, but she said, what are people finding inside them when they're dying? They're finding cobwebs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the thing is creating cobwebs inside people's bodies, and like, that's scary stuff, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
wow,
know if
that's
you heard about
intense.
that or what you think.
I haven't heard about the cobwebs inside of it, so maybe I'll watch your show and learn about what she's talking about. But yeah, I think all of it is, ways in which they can, these reptilian forces, these predatorial forces, these narcissistic forces can possess humans, and they can basically invade us, and they can use us for their harvesting. I think it's all harvesting back to beast machines. It's all harvesting back to corporations of profit over womankind, profit over humankind, profit over mankind, and that it's the cost of human blood, in which is spilled and is shed to run the greater mechanical beast of this greater technology that seems to ultimately want to survive and thrive here. And it's just really interesting. Like, sometimes I even feel like I see psychically like a big existing, like, internal, like, parasitic mechanical bug that's just like existing inside the earth. Like, call it like the spike. It's like a spike matrix. It's like this black cube box, and there's multiple dimensions of these like corrupted holograms inside of the earth that I think ultimately are representations of Saturn. They're representations of the phantom realms, the shadow realms, of the Nuberian realms, and that these inner earth living holograms have created these mechanical living beasts that can, alter locations, stargates, continents, planetary pole modification alignment. And really, I know this sounds like so crazy and so sci-fi, but like,
Well, no, because I was just about to get into like the AI and the surveillance aspect, because they're surveilling us on every aspect possible. Like if I don't even take my phone with me sometimes, like when I go outside, because like I know that they're watching me from my phone if they want to, because I feel like I'm a targeted individual. I've just started coming out about that recently, but I really truly do, and I feel bad for the people who are targeted. But like, I started putting it together one day. Like, I don't think it's necessarily because of what I do. I think it's just they have certain people that they target, and like, it's really crazy if you really think about it. But I mean, the surveillance is amped up to like a level it's unbelievable, and also. The AI is bad too, and I feel like the AI will tie into the surveillance, and it'll just become more tyrannical and more oligarchical, and over time, and until we're into a system. I mean, think about it the way they have us now. Like 90% of my friends are online, or people that I know from the podcast. I have very little physical interaction, and that's sad. I used to have a girlfriend. We broke up, okay? But like, so I was getting a lot of physical interaction then, but now like 90% of my friends are online. So what does that say about the way our society is turning? Like, if we don't have a lot of physical interaction, that kind of locks us into this AI world that they're trying to simulate, and they want us to eventually transhumanize into, if that makes any sense.
Well, I think Washington, D.C. is like ground zero for that. Like, I was just there. I got a glimpse of how a city runs that has less of a need for human beings' presence and human beings' existence. Like, just explaining how my experiences were in the hotels, where there's no longer concierges. I mean, even hotel check-ins are according to AI and chat box and punching in a code, and there is no physical communication. It's a cashless environment as well. Like, no, they don't have need for credit cards. They don't accept credit card. Or I'm sorry, they only accept credit cards. They don't accept cash. And so, like, we'll see a stripping more and more of those things as we start to develop and kind of go more technically evolved, such as into the smart cities, right? That's kind of, I think, what the goal was down in Hawaii. And so I think we'll see the human transformation happen more and more. And it's just a ripping and tearing us away from the organic systems as we continue to lose our value to those things, because people are so lost. People are so separated from source, from their own divine gnosis, from their higher self, from their own soul body. I mean, many beings don't even have souls, and that's not going to come in for another 200 years down their descension line, because they're so capped on their genetic evolution. So humanity's kind of in big trouble, especially if we continue to forget all of the prophecies, all of the ancient knowledge, all of the shamanic wisdom, all of our resources for natural healing, the natural curing of illnesses, sicknesses, and diseases. It's really, we're kind of in a crazy place, aren't we, with all of this? Like,
Do you see,
yeah.
excuse me, do you see a way out? Or do you think we can pull this together and like have a more positive future, or what do you think? I mean, for me, I don't want to say that we're fucked, because like I want to think more positive, but I just don't know. From what I see, it just looks like madness.
What I currently believe is that, it seems like madness, and we've been really awakened by these current events in Hawaii. It was like we got a straight jolt to the heart chakra of the planet. So everybody's still going through cycles of PTSD from that right now, and like the continual tremors and waves that are affecting the collective by the detriment of this event that took place. And so people are waking up now to planetary modification technology and weaponization. Like, this stuff is getting more out into the mainstream of, I think, what's going on. I have so many people come to me right now, and they'll be like, we can't really have these conversations, and this isn't a normal conversation to be had. But I'm kind of at the point where it's like, I don't see any separation between me and the mainstream, or like even my neighbors and regulated people. Like, they're all like, people are really, honestly, a lot of people are waking up to all of this stuff, no matter where they're getting their news from, no matter what outlets it's coming in. Like, people are reading and shredding through the BS and the untruths. And I think things are evolving, and I think there is spiritual technology that rises with the artificial, and we just have to be able to promote this. We have to be able to make it more mainstream. I mean, this is what Gridwork is. I'm always talking about Gridwork, and we brought my intro and my bio in. It's like, oh, I need to update that, because I wear a lot of different hats. I wrote that like 6 years ago. So I consider myself to be a planetary grid reader, facilitator, and teacher. And Gridwork technology is how we combat a lot of this negative and nefarious energy if we work together to truly extract the evils out of the land, because this is where it's held. Of course, it's held within us, within implants and seal systems, but we got to work on the bigger planetary body of it all. We got to work on the locations that are carrying all of the seed traumas of betrayal, and seed traumas of core world wounding, and seed traumas of trigger events and cataclysms and Holocaust and world wars. And, start extracting and healing the land, working with the land again, like connecting to what we are, connecting to the earth. Like, we have to reinstall these spiritual technologies that are here. They're available, they're being done, they're being learned, they're being taught, they're being facilitated. It's just that, how do we get this information out there without disrupting the contention between belief systems, right? Like, between religions, between the gods that you serve, and what's this and what's not. Like, bring back the focus into truly just getting rid of evil, straight darkness. That's what the Draco seal removal is. Ultimately, is going straight to the core of these particular things that are deceiving humanity and hold veils over our eyes and put these negative, satanic ritual abuse. And, we need to get rid of circumcision. We need to get rid of genital mutilation in general, whether they're ripping off clitorises, whether they're ripping off foreskin, whether they're pulling breast out of teenage girls. It's all the same thing. Like, we got to wake humanity up to these veils of delusion and psychotic behavior that's just like stripping the humanness from us and degrading our souls and spirit bodies. It's all about reteaching our youth how to do meditation and to implement our core soul, true tribal needs, which is all about a Lemurian revival, which is something I've been talking about for years, is bringing back the true essence and culturalism of the general human spirit and light body of that cultural time. And that's kind of what humanity needs right now, is a great reset to our ancient tribal codes, to awaken our priestesshood, to awaken our priesthood. And and I think it's there. I think it's coming. It just gets more and more crazy because it gets more and more interesting. But I think that it rises with the tampering at the same time. So we get more evolved, we get more spiritually activated, downloaded with knowledge, wisdoms, with technologies that can combat what's happening on an artificial level, and that it's going to go kind of like that, because there is no other way. It can't just be like this is always winning. That's just not even how the universal consciousness works. That's not even how we're built universally. We're not constructed consciously in that way. This is a barred system, so everything is always teetering within a balance, no matter what opposition you're looking at or what perspective it is. There's always, that equal opposition lens that's playing out.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: when you go in and you like try to heal someone from like a seal or an implant, are you still seeing the physical alien implants as well? Like, do you see those, or is it mostly all etheric now? Is it have they transcended to like a more etheric type implant? Is that why they have these seals, or do you still see someone with the occasional like old school physical alien implant?
Well, I think all of this really exists. It's within the holographic architecture. So it's living consciousness. They can manifest in physical implants and ailments, and surgeries, and especially for women, there's a lot of cauterization. There's a lot of implanting things in the body. These things can manifest into like actual physical things that would even have to be surgically removed, because you can't even energetically, remove those things. But yeah, this is about holographic blockages within the soul, spirit, astral, auric, different levels and layers of the light body field. It goes into the mental body. They go into the emotional body. They pretty much go into all fields in which, that living consciousness form can contain or hold space within you. And so, for me, when I'm doing this, I'm following a universal seal set system, as I want to make sure that like I'm getting all seals from a particular timeline that I know have had to exist, whether that person has fully inquired all of them or not, because things are tethered to each other, and you want to just really do a full clearing overall. But then as you tune in and scan into those, then you start to see like the individualized complications of other blockages and other things that have implanted, or other things that have been pulled into their field or magnetized to them because of these distortions. And so, there's multiple layers to all of this. It's really extensive psychic surgery work, and you get familiarized with it the more of it that you do. You have to have that client experience. You have to have that one-on-one engagement. You have to have developed remote view and psychic skills to be able to tune in. And there's a lot of processes that I think that go into making sure you're having successful seal removals overall. But it just depends, it's different for every single person, and how it comes through and how it manifests and how it affects someone, and according to this life and past lives, definitely.
Yeah. Well, we've been going about 52 minutes. Is there anything else that you want to cover today that you feel is important that we might have not touched on? Like,
I think we were going to cover the, was it the Giza Death Star? I'm sorry, the Gears of Giza?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. So it's another form of beast machine. So I did a show on planetary modification weapons technology, and that was 2 weeks ago. And I was talking about how prior to that, I did a cosmic grid update, how that if they would have implemented directed energy weapons, how they would have used the 33rd parallel. And so there's actually beast machinery in the Giza pyramids called the Gears of Giza. And it's like a power plant that they've used for the production of power. And it's called a Giza Death Star trilogy, designed and utilized as a weapon. And it's just another thing that they have running there, basically. There was a guy who wrote a book on it, and I was going to give you the information because I thought you were interested in it.
He was on, I'm trying to think of his name. I know his name. I know who he is too. I saw him he was on Dark Journalist a bunch of times. I know who you're talking about. He's on Dark Journalist. Guys, if you can help me out, the guy who wrote the book on the Giza Death Star, who's always on Dark Journalist. Why
is it Richard Sauter? Richard
No,
Sauter, PhD?
Well, that could be someone, but I'm thinking of someone different. Um, I wish somebody from the audience would know. I don't just want to. I'm looking for my phone. I want to look up for who his name is because he's really interesting. Fuck. I hate when that happens. Like, but
That's okay.
sorry. Go ahead. You can talk. I'll look it up. Like,
Well, I didn't. I got the information from a guy named Richard Sauter in a book called Underground Bases and Tunnels: What is the Government Trying to Hide? So he wrote like a book on this, multiple different planetary technologies. But one of the things he highlighted was this gears of Giza,
it was
and that
Joseph
it's like
Farrell.
a
Sorry, I was
okay,
just saying it was Joseph Farrell. I just looked up on my phone. Sorry,
yeah,
you got to check him out too. You'll like him. But
okay,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'll definitely check him out. Um, yeah, but I think it's like a gear. I think it's literally gears. I think it's like multiple layers of gears that are stacked, that are running. I think even like out of the king's chambers, and so they can like target this gears of Giza to transmit, whatever they want to transmit in any direction, basically from the pyramids. And so it's a theory, right? I mean, it's one that is, I think, coming up a lot as people kind of wake up to the amplification of all of this weaponization that's against us and what's really going on inside those pyramids. I think it's because they couldn't actually hijack the Stargate. They had to hide the weaponry inside of the pyramids.
Do you think this is something that's actually physically happening, or do you think it's something more holographic in nature, or
I
both?
think it could be both. Yeah, I think it could be both.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's so interesting. Like, yeah. Oh, I was trying to think of what else. Well, I guess we could ask if you guys have any questions for Indy, or before we finish up, like you can put your questions in the chat, and I could get to a couple of your questions real quick. Like, if somebody has a good one that you guys gonna, I mean, I have a couple more minutes, and then I have Raynetta at 9 o'clock, or in 2 hours. I have to do Raynetta's show,
Oh, I just
but
went to the comments. Okay. Can see them now.
yeah.
Joseph Farrell. Someone said Joseph Farrell. Someone said Steve Perry.
I've never heard of Steve Perry, but I know like Derek Galloway just showed his his book. He wrote a book called The Giza Death Star Deployed. But I think maybe Joseph Farrell was talking about a more ancient time, like uh, yeah, I'm not sure. Um, but that's interesting if they are utilizing that. I don't, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't. Like everything's so hidden from us anyway. So it's like, why wouldn't they? I mean, yeah, I feel like we're in like an inverted upside down world, honestly. Like nothing ever seems to amaze me here. Like it's like craziness on top of craziness. I feel like we're in some big like insane asylum, if that makes any sense. You know what I
No,
mean?
definitely. I showed you the picture of my internal black Saturn tesseract cube, how it's like rotating inside the planet, and it's kind of like the core basis of the Atlantean timeline with the spikes, it's like the spike matrix.
Yeah.
That's coming through, and it's holding the pins and fabrics in the grids, that it's upholding all this core wounding, it's encoding all this trauma and fear. I think it is operating from an inverted universal tree of life. And it has a lot to do with, I feel like, when religion really triumphs humanity. And like, you think about who is the first pope, or the one that was like crucified upside down. I think that was kind of like symbolic of the universal tree of life, and this disruption and this breakthrough of this kind of becoming the foundation for mankind's consciousness, and really running through all these major fallen and descended lineages and races, and bringing forward the Baphomet realms, the Thothian realms, the Luciferian realms, the Saturn worship. All of this is really stemming from that. And so this is what happens when you remove these fifth dimensional souls and ascended masters that can go into the inner earth gates and heal the darkness and actually remove this negative energy. They're trying to block that from happening. And I think this was one of the core reasons for the attacks on the Hawaiian Islands. Like, again, they're trying to block and stop that type of stuff from happening, that greater healing of these original bloodlines that have the ability to access and heal the planet. This is about going back to grid work.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to work on the gate systems. We have to work on the corruption inside of the planet. I know that sounds kind of crazy because we're just looking around seeing what's going on the surface, but everything that happens on the surface is playing out internally first. It's playing out inside the earth. This is where we have to start looking to find out how we have to heal the world, the consciousness, the planet, the globe, the universe, all the matrices in which we exist in. Something's going on inside of the earth. Something is shifting here so deep, whether it's playing off all inversion templating, reversal templating. Is there a wormhole inside of the planet? You know, a big one at the core. What is it that is inverting everything so deeply? And I think if we can direct our energy here, we can, you know, come up with some more deeper revelations to get on board with how to make it better.
I agree. I think that's really well said. I think we'll finish up there for today because I don't see any questions in the chat. But do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? And thank you so much again. I always love when we get together for shows like we always do. I think this might have been our best show yet. I thought this was a really good one because we really, you know, we were really synced and we did it. I thought it was amazing. I mean, I'm not giving us credit, but like.
Well, it's like when we haven't spoke for a while, we can like really go off, right?
Yeah.
I like getting together and talking with you as well. I think because you have so much outreach to people, like you get a very wide perspective of things and get a lot of different perspectives and new information that I haven't even heard of. And so, yeah, it's really cool. You're really smart, Rob. And we should. We keep doing shows. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think you are too. I love talking to you. Like I love you. Always give me like great insight as every time you come on, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. If anyone wants to follow me, I'm at my YouTube channel is IndigoAngel, all one word, and you can find me at IndigoAngel222.com. I always recommend signing up for my website newsletters. As everything that I talk about, I'm usually writing and sending it out in email format. So if you like to read, if you're like me, if you need to read, I need to read. There's that. And then also, if you're interested in any of the coursework, it's at learn.indigoangel222.com. I have quite a collection of courses now. It's turning into Indigo Angel University.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. It's really cool. I've been hosting my events on there. So we are going to do LA in May 2024. And then I'm hoping in September 2024, we're going to do Gridworker event in Kauai, Hawaii. So actually going in to do the boots on the ground work to everything that we're speaking of now. So really putting my money where my mouth is, so to speak, and getting my hands dirty, you know, and hopefully we'll be calling in a good guardian crew to come with us and to help us do an island healing where we go in and correct those gate systems, going directly to the lands in which the island in which the original massacres occurred. So,
and you're also going to Algeria too, right? Or you're trying to go to Algeria? You're trying to
I already booked my plane tickets for that one. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm going to Algeria in November 2023. Going to be visiting Teen Hinon's grave, which is said to be potentially a goddess of Neith. There's a lot of goddesses that are buried in Algeria. A lot of people don't know this, but it's a land in which the goddess has gone to rest. So there's actually like a pyramid there in which Cleopatra Selene is buried. And then also Teen Hinon's grave. And I think what's important to visit these grave sites is, according to North African pagan beliefs, like in order to receive blessings and in order to receive prophecy and like new worldly information and revolution, you're supposed to do tomb worship. You're actually supposed to go to the tombs and take an oath to the goddess and to the gravesite and ask for like these blessings to come forward. So I think I'm going to try it.
I'll be
posting it on YouTube.
I know you will. Yeah. Well, thank you, Indy, and it was amazing as always. And thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. And go support Indigo Angel's channel, guys. Like honestly, she has amazing insight and amazing work. And if you want to support the podcast, I always have links in the description. You can donate. A lot of you guys donate already. That affects me deeply. I really appreciate that because that enables me to keep doing what I'm doing. And I also like it when you guys join the Discord and Telegram groups, because if something were ever to happen to my YouTube, then you'll know to go follow me on Rumble, because you can stay connected with me in the Discord and Telegram. Bryson runs the Discord group. It's basically his Discord group. We just use my name, but he's like really cool, and like we kind of do it together. But I don't have a lot of time for it. But still, like it's awesome. Like you'll meet a lot of good friends in there in the Discord and Telegram group. So with all that said, just support and thank you guys so much, and thank you, Indy. It was really nice seeing you again, and this was awesome.
You too. Thanks for having me on, Rob. Much appreciated. Much love to everyone watching.
All right, thanks, guys, and I'll be back at 9 p.m. Eastern with Raynetta Jones, so I'll see you guys in a couple hours. And thanks, guys, and if whoever's not tuned in later, have a good night, but